Welcome to Investments. I'm Professor Shang Yang. Today we'll discuss Chapter 4 Mutual Funds. We'll focus on Section 4.1 on the basics of investment company. We will also focus on Section 4.2 on the types of investment companies. We will also do some in-class exercises and concept check for practice. We will need to prepare a calculator, pen or pencil, and pieces of paper or notebook for class. At the end of our session, we will do summary for review. Before we begin, you might be interested in asking yourself a few questions. First, what is a mutual fund? Second, should I invest or not? Third, how do I invest? If you're interested in investing in mutual funds, how about let's start with the basics of a mutual fund. First of all, what is a mutual fund? Well, suppose you would like to invest in a company stock, but you do not have enough money to purchase stocks or make any investments in the financial market by yourself. Now, noticing that in the financial market, as an individual investor, everything has to be paid out by cash, unless under some circumstances that you're allowed to do margin trading. Therefore, you ask you and your friends to join you and provide some capital to raise some funds for investment participation. You and your friends are also decided to find another person to become the mutual fund manager to handle the buying and selling decision and all the transactions related to the portfolio management. By doing so, you and your friends have already established a mutual fund, quote unquote, with a specific investment goals and objectives, as well as designating a professional mutual fund manager for investment decision making. Second, when do I invest? Well, once the mutual fund is established, your friends may wonder when to invest. Do you prefer investing regularly, irregularly, or just on a one-time basis? It really all depends on you and on your financial condition. Nowadays, mutual fund companies allow investors to invest on a flexible scheduling. You may choose to set up a regular investment scheme with your bank account for regular transfer, either in the beginning of the month, middle of the month, or end of the month. You may also just decide to invest at any time that you wish. You may also authorize to buy or sell at specific prices and quantity to manage your investment portfolio. Some banks would allow investors to charge their mutual fund investment fees through credit cards. Of course, selected mutual funds will be limited. This way, you may also enjoy a grace period offered by credit cards to plan for your investment. What a convenience. Third, how do I invest? Investors can choose to invest at the minimum amount, generally around NT 3,000, or the equivalent of US 100. That is the case in Taiwan. Of course, in different countries, different amounts may apply and different conditions. However, if you would like to invest with a greater amount, you may also increase your investment amount. Of course, different mutual companies will have different regulations for investment frequency and amount. You will need to double check, right? Because every mutual fund is different. Now, let's take a look at slide 4-1, okay? Investment companies are also generally known as financial intermediaries that will collect funds from individual investors and invest those funds in a potentially wide range of securities and other assets. Now, in mutual fund investing, not only individual investors participate, we also have institutional investors and even governments, right? We'll be talking about that in later sessions, right? But however, mutual fund would seem to be a very convenient way to invest in the stock market, either directly or indirectly. It will provide regular household as one of the first experience in investing. Now, what are the functions for investment companies or the so-called mutual fund companies? Usually, they will do record-keeping administration, of course, necessary, because mutual funds, once it is established and if it meets the regulation of the Stock Exchange Commission, SEC, they must also follow with all the regulations set by the SEC. That would include the minimum fundraising period, the minimum fund size, and also the general administration, the fee structure, and also how long the fund can be established and until what time or at what level the fund has to be liquidated, okay? So the mutual fund is actually providing a very well-rounded investor protection for everyday investors. So that'll be for the record keeping and administration. Right, and also in administration, there's also a mutual fund manager. So what does a mutual fund manager do? He will have to be able to conduct the transactions according to the regulations, to the principles, to the objectives, to all the trading strategies that are actually stated in the prospectus. Prospectus is the most important official document for the mutual fund, and every single investor can request for a free copy of prospectus. Nowadays, you can also request for that online for free. In the old days, you just write to the mutual fund company, and they will mail you a whole package of all the different documentation and promotion document for the mutual fund for you to consider for investing. Now, another function would be diversification and divisibility. Now, in the mutual fund, we tend to have different categories and different investment purposes, and that will also provide us with different types of risks and return. Professional management, of course, as a mutual fund manager, he or she would have to be able to perform well, meeting the requirement of the fund, okay, in order to obtain a specific performance. And then that will also include, some transactions, frequent or infrequent, and the asset allocations, and also the investment purpose and objective. And also lower the transaction costs, definitely. If you're an amateur in investing, mutual fund could be one of the best ways for you to start and try to learn how the stock market is and how the investment market is. The lower transaction costs will occur because everybody else in investing just like you, all right? For example, you might not be able to afford 1 unit of transaction on the stock exchange, but if you invest through a mutual fund, you can only decide to invest a portion, not even one entire unit. All right. So we're saying that maybe you only want to invest a certain amount, like NT 3,000, but there's no way you can buy a stock from a stock exchange with only NT 3,000. All right, because in Taiwan we have this minimum trading size or quantity for stocks, and also in the U.S. is the same thing too. Right? So stocks will be more expensive, okay, if we want to compare to mutual fund. That's why mutual fund is generally very popular among small investors, amateur investors, new investors, okay, who would like to have a sense of investing, but they don't want to really invest that much in one time, and they don't know how to make a decision. All right. So with a professional management, with a lower transaction cost, and you know what's going on in the portfolio, the mutual fund will have different combinations of investment content. Maybe 50% in time deposit and 50% in bonds, okay? Or another combination might be 10% in cash and 90% in equity or stocks, okay? That'll be the different combinations of investment portfolio that we see in the mutual fund. And you, as an investor, you will only invest a small portion, okay, depending on your preference, depending on your capability, and then you can choose, okay, how much you want to invest. Right. So how does a mutual fund invest? For example, in the money market mutual fund, then the mutual fund manager will concentrate trading in the currency or the foreign exchange market. So we have the so-called US dollar denominated money market fund. And then you say, well, the foreign exchange market, how do I begin? Because usually as an individual investor, if you want to invest in the foreign exchange market, it would take a lot of capital and a lot of expertise. So money market mutual fund seems to be very popular for regular households, okay, if you're focusing on currency exchange. And the US dollar is also a very popular currency. Then this would be, not a bad choice, okay, for you to choose from. Or if you say, well, I want to, invest in equity, okay, in stock market, but I don't know which stock to choose from. then an equity mutual fund would also be very appropriate. All right. So for the equity mutual fund, the mutual fund manager would choose, either the top 10 or the top 30, or he or she would choose, a combination of the good stocks, the medium stocks, or maybe some of the different stocks. Okay, depending on the investment performance that the mutual fund manager is actually aiming for or seeking for. Now we also have the bond mutual fund, okay, bond mutual fund that will concentrate on trading in the bond market. Now again, bond market is also quite inaccessible for individual investors, and generally we see a large quantity of institutional investors or corporations who are actually actively participating in the bond market. Then the bond market, the bond mutual fund will also be a good choice, okay? And it will be looking for different bond products from different governments or from different companies. Most of the time they'll be focusing on corporate bonds, okay, corporate bonds. So all the mutual fund trading, okay, will be conducted through the financial market during the opening hours. So one of the disadvantage for mutual fund is that you don't get to see the prices of the mutual fund on a real-time basis. It's not like the stock market, and it's not like the currency market. You only can obtain the pricing of a mutual fund at the end of the day. That's because during the daytime, during the trading hours of a stock exchange or currency exchange, mutual fund managers are actually conducting the transactions. And the way we calculate the prices for mutual fund is actually quite different from the way we calculate for other financial markets. Okay, right. So one of the disadvantage investing in mutual fund is that as a mutual fund investor, you only get to have the pricing at the end of the day. So usually maybe around 4 or maybe around 5, okay, depending on companies. But you do get a pricing at the end of the day eventually, and we'll show you how to calculate the pricing for mutual fund later on. Right. Okay. So in Taiwan we have the pricing at 4 p.m. That's because in Taiwan we have half-day trading for the stock exchange. So if the mutual fund is concentrating in Taiwan, then you will probably obtain a mutual fund pricing around 4 p.m., 4:30, and at latest no later than 5 p.m. Okay, but if you have selected a mutual fund that will concentrate trading in the U.S. market or in other markets with a full day trading from 9 to 5, then it will probably be you will only obtain the pricing around 5:30 or 6, but eventually you will also obtain a pricing. Now, it is also regulated by the SEC, Security Exchange Commission, that each day the mutual fund company must announce the prices, okay, of the mutual fund. So no worry about what happens if there's a vacation, what happens if there's a postpone. Nothing like that is going to happen, right? So the SEC would actually pay very special attention to the information accessibility and also to information announcement to the public as a way to protect protections for investors, right? Okay, so very importantly, that we talked about the pricing of the mutual fund. Okay, is through what we call the net asset value.